The snowstorm descended without warning, thick flakes swirling in the headlights of a battered SUV. Taylor gripped the wheel tightly, her knuckles pale as the wipers fought a losing battle against the icy torrent. The GPS was useless, just a flashing no-signal icon, and the road ahead was little more than a memory. "Are we seriously stuck in the middle of nowhere?" groaned Emma from the back seat, her phone dim with inactivity. "Relax," Taylor snapped. "I saw a sign for a lodge back there. We'll find shelter until the storm lets up." Jake, in the passenger seat, nodded grimly. "Better that than freezing out here." As if on cue, a faint glow appeared in the distance. The group held their breath as the SUV crawled toward it, revealing a decrepit cabin with sagging walls and frost-covered windows. "It's quaint," Emma offered weakly. Taylor killed the engine, the silence that followed more deafening than the howling wind. "It's shelter. Let's go." The interior was just as desolate as the outside. Layers of dust blanketed the furniture, and the air was heavy with mildew. Yet, a fire crackled warmly in the stone hearth, its flames too steady and inviting to be natural. "Who lit this?" Jake asked, his voice low. Taylor ignored him, stepping cautiously toward the fire. On the mantel sat a clock, frozen at midnight, its ticking muted but insistent. The room itself was strange. The longer they stayed, the more oppressive it felt, as though unseen eyes were watching. Emma shivered and turned to leave. "We should wait in the car. This place is—" The door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "That wasn't the wind," Jake said. "No kidding," Taylor whispered. The storm outside howled louder, rattling the windows. Exploring the cabin, they found a series of photographs nailed to the walls, all depicting groups of travelers sitting by the same hearth, smiles frozen and eyes glassy. "Are these real?" Emma asked, her voice cracking. "Look at the dates," Taylor said. Each photo was labeled with a year, and the most recent was 1993. Jake pulled a photo from the wall, revealing deep scratches behind it, marks that resembled tally marks, carved in desperation. He dropped the frame with a curse. "Let's just sit by the fire until the storm clears," Emma suggested, retreating into the main room. Taylor shook her head, but followed. The air seemed colder away from the hearth, and despite her unease, the fire's warmth was intoxicating. Hours passed in restless silence. Taylor sat cross-legged on the floor, staring into the fire. Every now and then, the flames flickered unnaturally, casting eerie shadows that danced like ghostly figures. A sudden groan echoed from upstairs. Emma bolted upright. "This place is empty, right? No one lives here?" "Stay here," Jake said, grabbing a rusty poker from the hearth. Taylor and Emma exchanged worried glances as he ascended the creaking staircase. Minutes passed. Then a muffled scream. "Jake!" Taylor called, rushing after him. The upstairs hallway stretched impossibly long, a door at the end yawning open. Taylor stepped cautiously into the room, the floorboards protesting her every step. Inside, Jake stood frozen, staring at a mirror. "What are you doing?" Taylor demanded, shaking his shoulder. He didn't respond. In the mirror's reflection, Taylor saw herself, but something was wrong. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken, and her lips curved into a sinister grin that didn't match her own expression. A cold hand gripped her shoulder. Taylor spun around, but no one was there. Back in the main room, Emma was staring at the fire, her face pale. "We need to leave. Now," she whispered. "The door won't open," Taylor said, panic seeping into her voice. "The fire," Emma said, pointing. Within the flames, they saw faces, dozens of them, screaming silently. Among them were the travelers from the photographs. "We're trapped," Jake said, finally breaking free from his daze. "This cabin doesn't let people go." Taylor scanned the room, her mind racing. The clock on the mantel still read midnight, but its ticking had grown louder, more insistent. "The clock!" she shouted. "It has to mean something." Jake grabbed the clock and smashed it against the hearth, but instead of stopping, the ticking grew deafening. The fire roared, and the faces within it twisted in agony. The cabin itself seemed to come alive. Walls warped and groaned, the floor buckled, and icy wind whipped through cracks that hadn't been there moments before. "We have to break the cycle!" Taylor yelled over the chaos. She grabbed one of the photographs from the wall and hurled it into the fire. The flames flared violently, and a voice boomed from the walls. "You cannot escape!" Jake grabbed another photo and threw it in. The fire responded with a guttural scream, and for a moment, the cabin trembled violently. "Keep going!" Taylor shouted. As the last photo burned, the fire sputtered out, plunging the cabin into darkness. When Taylor opened her eyes, she was back in the SUV. The storm had passed, and sunlight reflected off the untouched snow. "Was it a dream?" Emma asked weakly from the back seat. Taylor didn't respond. She turned the key, and the engine sputtered to life. They drove in silence, the memory of the cabin too raw to discuss. But as they rounded the bend, Taylor glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. Through the trees, she saw the cabin standing untouched, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. Inside, 3 new photographs hung on the wall. And as the darkness fades, remember, the real chills linger long after the story's end. Until next time, brave souls.